Welcome. We are talking about Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and the historical origins of blackmail operations in the United States. This is from an article by Whitney Webb of Mint Press News. And before we get started, I want to add a quick caveat that there is evidence that Donald Trump was connected to some of the people that were involved in these blackmail operations, such as Jeffrey Epstein and Roy Cohn, but it's not clear that he knew the extent of their involvement. And in fact, it appears that he cut off relationships with both of these people, possibly when he found out what they were really doing. Now that we've given that caveat, let's jump in here. This article is from July 18th, 2019. So this is back when the Epstein case was breaking. Hidden in plain sight, the shocking origins of the Jeffrey Epstein case. Epstein is only the latest incarnation of a much older, more extensive, and sophisticated operation that offers a frightening window into how deeply tied the U.S. government is to the modern-day equivalents of organized crime. Despite his sweetheart deal and having seemingly evaded justice, billionaire sex offender Jeffrey Epstein was arrested earlier this month on federal charges for sex trafficking minors. Epstein's arrest has again brought increased media attention to many of his famous friends, the current president among them. Many questions have since been asked about how much Epstein's famous friends knew of his activities, and exactly what Epstein was up to. The latter arguably received the most attention after it was reported that Alex Acosta, who arranged Epstein's sweetheart deal in 2008, and who recently resigned as Donald Trump's labor secretary following Epstein's arrest, claimed that the mysterious billionaire had worked for intelligence. Other investigations have made it increasingly clear that Epstein was running a blackmail operation, as he had bugged the venues, whether at his New York mansion or Caribbean island getaway, with microphones and cameras to record the salacious interactions that transpired between his guests and the underage girls that Epstein exploited. Epstein appeared to have stored much of that blackmail in a safe on his private island. Claims of Epstein's links and his involvement in a sophisticated, well-funded sexual blackmail operation have, surprisingly, spurred few media outlets to examine the history of intelligence agencies, both in the U.S. and abroad, conducting similar sexual blackmail operations, many of which also involved underage prostitutes. In the U.S. alone, the CIA operated numerous sexual blackmail operations throughout the country, employing prostitutes to target foreign diplomats in what the Washington Post once nicknamed the CIA's love traps. If one goes even farther back into the U.S. historical record, it becomes apparent that these tactics and their use against powerful political and influential figures significantly predate the CIA and even its precursor, the Office of Strategic Services, OSS. In fact, they were pioneered years earlier by none other than the American Mafia. In the course of this investigation, Mint Press has discovered that a handful of figures who were influential in American organized crime during and after Prohibition were directly engaged in sexual blackmail operations that they used for their own, often dark, purposes. In part 1 of this investigation, Mint Press will examine how a mob-linked businessman with deep ties to notorious gangster Meyer Lansky developed close ties with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, while also running a sexual blackmail operation for decades, which later became a covert part of the anti-communist crusade of the 1950s, led by Senator Joseph McCarthy, himself known throughout Washington for having a habit of drunkenly groping underage teenaged girls. Yet it would be one of McCarthy's closest aides who would take over the ring in later years, trafficking minors and expanding this sexual blackmail operation. At the same time, he expanded his own political influence, putting him in close contact with prominent figures, including former President Ronald Reagan and a man who would later become President, Donald Trump. As will be revealed in Part 2, after this figure's death, the blackmail operation continued under various successors in different cities, and there is strong evidence that Jeffrey Epstein became one of them. In our next video, we will discuss Samuel Bronfman and the mob.